the history of the National Football League, no position has evolved quite like the quarterback. From the early days of Starr and Bradshaw to the heroics of Montana and Elway.
Here's Montana throwing for the end zone.
The command of Manning and Brady to the creativity of Allen, Jackson, and Mahomes. No two quarterbacks are quite the same. We've seen big-bodied pocket passers like Phillip Rivers and smaller ones like Brees. We've been graced with shifty runners like Vic and powerful ones like Newton. Over time, the essence of the way offense is played in the NFL has changed. And with it, so is the quarterback position, with the all-time greats in each era playing their own unique styles. In this video, we'll take a look at the greatest quarterbacks from each decade of the Super Bowl era and investigate how their unique abilities shape their position and, in turn, football. In the early years of the Super Bowl era, a number of great quarterbacks graced the gridiron. Talented signal callers like Tarkenton, Namath, and Blanda were hallmarks in the infancy of the Super Bowl era, but arguably the greatest of this time period were Unitis and Star. Johnny Unitas, aka the Golden Arm, was a standout field general for the Baltimore Colts, where he played 17 seasons. Johnny achieved much of his success in the late 50s and early 60s, but was still incredibly impactful in the Super Bowl era, winning 1967 NFL MVP and later would bring home Super Bowl V for the Baltimore Colts in 1971. Johnny's impact on the early years of quarterback play were far-reaching. He displayed uncanny toughness, was impeccable field general who was known for his understanding of NFL defenses, and audibles at the line of scrimmage, which was uncommon in this era of the NFL. But most of all, Johnny was famous for his incredibly strong arm, where he often stretched defenses vertically with a deep passing game, hence his nickname, the Golden Arm. Johnny was an innovator in the early years of the Super Bowl era, introducing the 2-minute drill, and paving the way for future quarterbacks by showing the importance of a potent passing game. Bart Starr, on the other hand, certainly advanced quarterback play, but in a manner much different than Mr. Unitas. Bart Starr was the on-field leader for the Green Bay Packers for 16 seasons, 8 of which he played under legendary coach Vince Lombardi. He was NFL MVP in 1966 and winner of the first 2 Super Bowls, forever etching his name in NFL lore. Starr, while tremendous, was a different player than Johnny and emphasized a much more meticulous approach to the game that would further pave the way for future QBs. Starr was an expert in the short and intermediate passing game, where he displayed high levels of accuracy and timing, often slicing up defenses through a death by 1,000 cuts method on his way to the end zone. Beyond Starr's advances in the short to intermediate passing game, he was also a tremendous leader, displaying the significance of having a strong, on-field coach who could lead his team to victory. But above all, his greatest impact may have been his emphasis on a balanced attack, where he consistently put his team in a position to succeed on both run plays and pass. Unitas and Starr, while both tremendous, were great in their own ways. Unitas emphasized a bold, deep passing attack, while Starr attacked the game with a calm, collected, and meticulous approach. And above all, both exemplified the importance of a multifaceted passing attack that would lay the groundwork for future offenses and quarterbacks to succeed. In the 70s, the torch was passed to many other great signal callers, but none stood out quite like Roger Staubach and Terry Bradshaw. Staubach quarterbacked the great 70s Cowboys for 11 seasons, playing from 1969 to 1979. Over this time frame, Roger led the Cowboy teams to 2 championships, winning Super Bowl VI and XII, and was a 6-time Pro Bowler. Staubach, compared to Unitas and Starr, exhibited a much different style of play. Roger was known for his improvisation and mobility, consistently extending plays with his feet and making highly accurate throws on the run.
Roger takes the snap.
He was a true dual threat, showing the importance of exploiting defenses through a mobile approach. In addition to his quickness and improv skills, Staubach also excelled in the play-action passing game, further innovating the quarterback position through QB rollouts and his on-the-field leadership style that emphasized a team-first mentality and would set the standard for future players. Bradshaw, however, displayed a much different style of play. Terry Bradshaw played all 14 seasons for the Steelers from 1970 to 1983, bringing the franchise 4 championship titles with victories in Super Bowls 9, 10, 13, and 14, with 2 sets of back-to-back championships in the 70s. Terry was a 2-time Super Bowl MVP and league MVP in 1978. Bradshaw was phenomenal in the 70s, just like Staubach.
Thereafter, he throws on the move into the end zone and is caught for a touchdown.
But played a much different game. Terry was known for his incredible pocket presence and exceptionally strong arm. And while Bradshaw may not have exhibited the mobility outside of the pocket that Staubach did, He showed the importance of being able to operate within the pocket, avoiding defenders, and delivering strikes downfield. Terry was also a major risk taker, which set him apart from some of the other quarterbacks up until this point. Bradshaw consistently attempted throws into tight windows, in many cases for touchdowns, but in several instances leading to interceptions. Terry's classical style of play set the standard for quarterbacks and was the model for future generations of signal callers, while also showing that taking risks wasn't always a bad thing. Staubach and Bradshaw were both tremendous playmakers for their teams, but in vastly different ways. They proved that the quarterback position was fluid, and that distinct play styles could lead to team success at the game's most important position. The 1980s were unlike any other era of quarterback to date, in that many of the all-time greats graced the field with their play, and each exhibited a unique style of play. This decade boasted the likes of Dan Marino, John Elway, Jim Kelly, Joe Montana, and in the later part of the 80s, Steve Young. And while Young played some as Montana's backup in the later part of the decade, his greatness will be reserved for the 90s.
Young was strictly a backup to future Hall of Famer Joe Montana.
Let's start with Kelly. Jim Kelly was the starting quarterback of the Buffalo Bills for 11 seasons, from 86 to 96. While Jim is well known for his 4 falls with Buffalo, it takes a tremendously talented quarterback to reach 4 straight Super Bowls, and Jim was certainly that. He was well known for his quick release, deadly accuracy, and advanced knowledge of the West Coast offense, where he often cut up defenses on short and intermediate passing routes on the way to the end zone. Jim further advanced the quarterback position through his style of play, emphasizing the importance of a quick release and speedy processing in addition to strong leadership on the field, where his teammates resonated with his confidence and competitive drive. Dan Marino was similar to Kelly, in that he too had a very quick release, but also a very strong arm, which he used to redefine the passing game in this era of the NFL, and set numerous records on his way to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Marino played all 17 of his NFL seasons for the Miami Dolphins, and while he failed to achieve football's ultimate goal, a Super Bowl, his skill set set the standard for future quarterbacks, and was rewarded with an NFL MVP in 1984, and 3 first-team All-Pro selections. While Marino wasn't the most mobile, his football IQ and quick release allowed him to evade pass rushers in the pocket, and his strong arm loosened up defenses, paving the way for his quick release to cut up the opposition in the short and intermediate passing game. John Elway, like Marino, had a big arm, but unlike Dan, had amazing mobility, making him one of the most deadly dual-threat quarterbacks in NFL history. Elway played all 16 seasons for the Denver Broncos, winning NFL MVP in 1987, and being named to 3 Pro Bowls in the back half of the decade. Elway's skill set was very unique for his time period, and while other quarterbacks before him displayed similar mobility and powerful arms, nobody did it quite like John. Elway had one of the most powerful arms in NFL history, allowing him to drive the ball deep down the field and into tight windows. On the other hand, Elway was also very fleet of foot. He often escaped the pocket when the play broke down, either picking up yardage with his feet or evading the defenders long enough to throw a strike to one of his playmakers. These 2 gifts made Elway incredibly hard to defend, and this skill, coupled with his fearless risk-taking and strong on-field leadership, allowed John to etch his name in NFL history as one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Last, but certainly not least, we have the greatest quarterback of the 1980s, Joe Montana.
Back to throw Montana.
Joe Cool played 14 seasons for the Niners, from 1979 to 1992. He was a 4-time Super Bowl champion in the decade, won 3 Super Bowl MVPs, and 2 NFL MVPs. He was, for a long time, widely regarded as the greatest to ever do it. Montana had a number of skills that made him great, but a few stand out more than others. He was an exceptionally accurate passer, like many others on this list, and was known for his ability to make pinpoint throws to receivers in tight windows. He mastered the art of play action, often fooling defenders, and while he wasn't the fastest quarterback of all time, his mobility aided him in avoiding defenders for long enough to deliver the ball to his playmakers. While all of these traits helped Joe on his way to becoming one of the greatest to ever do it, arguably his most important attribute was his ability to perform in the clutch, unlike any other quarterback we'd seen until this point. What truly set Joe apart from his peers wasn't his ability to make accurate throws or evade defenders, but to perform in crunch time, particularly in the postseason. And that specific characteristic is what made him a quarterback that will be remembered for generations. Up to this point, we've covered a lot of talented quarterbacks, and over time, they all added unique abilities, further evolving the quarterback position. Starr emphasized leadership and knowledge, Unitis exhibited the strength of a powerful arm, Staubach showed why mobility could be so difficult to defend, and Bradshaw why risk-taking wasn't such a bad thing. Marino and Kelly displayed that elite-level accuracy could make quarterbacks nearly unguardable. Elway showed that speed and a strong arm could do the same, but Montana showed that clutch performances, up until this point, is what stands above all, setting the standard for other great signal callers to be mentioned later on. In the 90s, there was a lot of crossover, as many of the great quarterbacks from the 80s, like Elway, Marino, and Kelly, played a large portion of their careers in the 90s as well. But to avoid repeating their skill sets, we'll simply highlight some of their achievements. Kelly, of course, made 4 straight Super Bowls with Buffalo from 91 to 94. Elway won back-to-back with Denver, bringing home Super Bowls 32 and 33. And of course, Marino continued slinging the pigskin at an incredibly high level, setting records and winning Comeback Player of the Year in 94. Montana played in the 90s as well, but only for a few seasons, winning MVP in 1990. And while we'd be remiss to not mention these great signal callers as greats for the 90s as well, 3 more talented quarterbacks graced this decade and left their mark on the game. The first is former Fox and current ESPN Monday Night Football color commentator, Troy Aikman. Troy played all 12 of his NFL seasons for the Dallas Cowboys, where he made 6 straight Pro Bowls from 1991 to 1996 and brought home 3 Lombardi trophies in 4 seasons. While Aikman's skill level has been somewhat disputed by NFL fans, his impact on the Cowboys and on the game of football cannot be ignored. Troy, above all, was an all-time great game manager and leader. His intangible characteristics were uncanny, consistently putting his team in a position to win and pushing his team both on the field and off of it. Aikman's accuracy and pocket presence were very strong as well, but his lasting impact on the game was his emphasis on leadership at the quarterback position, and was a driving force behind the Cowboys' success in the 90s. Aikman was similar to Montana, in that both displayed a calm demeanor and strong leadership style, but at the turn of the decade, the Niners felt as though they were ready to move on from Joe Cool. And when Joe requested a trade from San Francisco due to quarterback controversy,
Joe Montana going back to San Francisco,
the heir apparent, Steve Young, stepped in to replace him. Steve was, in some ways, similar to Montana, in that both displayed high levels of accuracy, but the uniqueness that Steve brought to the Niners offense was his mobility and strong improvisational skills. Steve was dynamic, making his biggest impact when operating outside of the pocket and structure of the play. Young was a nightmare for defenses, and when he escaped, was always a threat to run, drawing the defense in and allowing him to make plays with his arm. Steve's incredible style of play allowed him to play 8 seasons as a starter in San Francisco, where he brought home a Super Bowl of his own. Young's greatness with his feet was extremely impactful, but his ability to improvise was his greatest attribute, an attribute eerily similar to the next great quarterback of the 90s, Brett Favre. Favre's career started out strange, in that he was drafted by the Falcons in 1991 and immediately traded to the Packers the following offseason. While in Green Bay, Brett shined. He won 3 straight MVPs from 1995 to 1997 and brought the Lombardi back to Green Bay with a victory in Super Bowl 31. The hallmark of Favre's game was, of course, his arm. As one of the greatest gunslingers the game has ever seen, Favre's arm talent was quite literally insane. His ability to fit balls into impossibly tight windows, make throws on the run, and drive the ball down the field while improvising was unlike anything the game had seen up until this point. The most underrated aspect of Brett's game, however, may have been his durability and toughness. Brett almost never missed a game, and in fact, didn't miss a single game for 17 straight seasons. Brett's arm talent was insane, but the lasting legacy he left in the game was his toughness, showing that the best ability may very well be availability, and setting the Iron Man standard for future generations of field generals. The 2000s brought another wave of talented signal callers into the fold, and while Brett Favre continued to impress throughout the decade, 4 more quarterbacks left their mark on the game and ushered in the era of the pocket passing field general. The first great quarterback of the Y2K decade was none other than Peyton Manning. Manning began his career with the Colts in 1998 and started every game for the franchise all the way through the 2010 season. During this time, Manning won 4 league MVPs, which was a record at the time, until he surpassed it the next decade, and was leader of the Colts Super Bowl 41 team. Manning ushered in what many consider to be a traditional style of quarterback play, but exhibited just how impactful a sharp-minded pocket-passing field general could be. Manning, aka the Sheriff, lived up to his nickname. He had near complete control of the game at all times while on the field. Famous for his audibles at the line of scrimmage and uncanny ability to get his team into the right play, Peyton became a household name for his intellectual attack to the game, and while he certainly boasted many great physical traits as well, except maybe an impact with his feet, Manning will forever be remembered as one of the greatest football minds to ever play the position. The second great quarterback in this decade, and the greatest quarterback of all time, is, of course, Tom Brady. Brady's entry into the league was much different than Manning's, in that he was a late-round draft pick and backup to start his career, whereas Manning was a highly touted first overall pick. But Tom's late draft position certainly didn't slow him down, and if anything, set the stage for what would make him so great throughout his career, the mindset he brought to the game of football. Tom originally backed up Bledsoe to start his career, but when Drew went down, Tom stepped in, and well, the rest was history. Over the course of the 2000s, Brady won 3 Super Bowls with the Pats, 2 Super Bowl MVPs, along with a regular season MVP, and Comeback Player of the Year in 2007. Brady, unlike many quarterbacks over the generations, lacked many of the physical tools NFL analysts thought were critical to the position, and while Tom was an exceptionally accurate passer, his greatest gifts to the game were the intangible tools he displayed over his career.
Three-time Super Bowl MVP Tom Brady, who has virtually every record for a quarterback.
What made Tom great wasn't his arm strength or mobility, but rather his exceptional work ethic, football IQ, dedication to becoming the best, and ability to stand tall in the pocket. Tom set the standard for leadership, consistently pushing himself and his teammates to be the best football players they could be. He set the benchmark as a student of the game, obsessing over opposing teams' tape, learning their tendencies, and how to exploit them. And of course, was the most competitively driven player ever, consistently working to prove doubters wrong and assert himself as the best in the league. Brady accomplished a lot as a quarterback, but his greatest impact on the game was the example he set with his intangibles, proving to future generations of quarterbacks that work ethic and competitive drive may very well be the most important traits a quarterback can have. Aside from Brady and Manning, 2 more quarterbacks etched their name in football lore in the decade, the first being Ben Roethlisberger, and the second, Drew Brees. Roethlisberger was drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2004 and played 18 seasons with the franchise. He won Rookie of the Year in 2004, was selected to the Pro Bowl in 2007, and helped the Steelers win Super Bowl 40. As a quarterback, Roethlisberger was physically gifted, sporting a massive 6'5", 240-pound frame, but for his size, was quite nimble as well, with a unique ability to move within the pocket and deliver strikes down the field. Roethlisberger exhibited many similar traits to quarterbacks that came before him, like awareness, accuracy, arm strength, and pocket presence. But the novelty of his game was truly his ability to do all these things at near tight end size, showing that size is in fact a weapon. On the opposite end of the spectrum is Drew Brees. Brees played for the Chargers from 2001 to 2005, and then for the Saints from 2006 to 2020, winning 2 Offensive Player of the Years and Super Bowl 44. Brees was, well, small by quarterback standards. He measured in at around 6 feet tall and weighed just over 200 pounds. But that didn't stop Brees from becoming one of the greatest quarterbacks of his generation. Drew had many traits that helped him make up for his lack of size. His field vision was remarkable, his release was deadly, and he was an amazing leader. But what really made Drew special, above all else, was his accuracy. Drew, for 2 decades, consistently diced up defenses at a prolific clip and proved that accuracy has always been a quarterback's best friend, and that size, while important, was far from necessary. The 2000s was the decade of the quarterback, with so many great signal callers leaving their mark on the game. Of all the aforementioned, along with Favre, were the best of this decade. We'd be remiss to not mention 2 more impactful gunslingers. The first is Eli Manning, younger brother of Peyton Manning, and 2-time Super Bowl winning quarterback for the New York Giants. Eli was similar stylistically to many of the quarterbacks mentioned in this decade, but his greatest attribute was the ability to perform in the clutch, particularly in the Super Bowls, where he consistently made big play after big play, helping his Giants topple Brady and Belichick's Patriots to win 2 Lombardis. The other is none other than Michael Vick. Vick's scrambling ability was, until this point, unlike anything the NFL had ever seen. His top-end speed, ability to escape, and field vision were running back-like, and in this era of football, extremely unique for quarterbacks. He was, at the time, one of a kind, and impressed on youngsters just how deadly a running quarterback could be. The 2000s and 2010s were, well, loaded with quarterbacks, with so much signal caller overlap and so many worthy of mention. Brady, Peyton, Eli, Roethlisberger, and Brees continued doing their thing in the 2010s, with Brady continuing to be the gold standard. But several other big-time quarterbacks left their unique marks on the game. The first is Aaron Rodgers, the man who took over for other all-time great quarterback Brett Favre in Green Bay. Aaron played 18 seasons with the Pack, starting 15 of them, was a 4-time first-team All-Pro, won 4 MVPs, and Super Bowl 45. Aaron is argued as the most talented quarterback of all time. He's highly accurate, has a cannon for an arm, and a generational football IQ. But what has made Rodgers truly special as a quarterback is his ability to improvise and make off-platform throws. Consistently throughout his career, Rodgers has made miraculous play after miraculous play, even when things look grim. He's made a living off of beating defenses with the hard count, scrambling to avoid the rush, and delivering the ball with near perfect accuracy into tight windows when all hope seemed lost. His unique ability inspired a generation of quarterbacks to come, and has shaped the play style of many new quarterbacks in the league today, including another all-time great quarterback, to be named later. While Rodgers' talent was arguably the best of the decade, a few others managed to make a name for themselves. Cam Newton, with Carolina, exploded onto the scene, winning an MVP while with the Panthers, and leading them to a Super Bowl berth. While Newton's longevity wasn't the greatest, his play style at its peak was one of one. Cam is massive, with a similar build to Roethlisberger, but parlayed that size with speed and downfield running ability, making one of the hardest quarterbacks ever to game plan, and a nightmare for opposing coordinators. Similar to height in Newton, but different in just about every other way, was Philip Rivers, whose reliability and durability, leadership and dependableness helped him make 8 Pro Bowls and leave his mark on the game. Similar in toughness to Rivers, but not in arm strength, of course, is the flamethrower Matthew Stafford, who was an Ironman in Detroit for over a decade, and arguably the greatest arm talent, outside of Favre, the game has ever seen. As the originator of the no-look throw, Stafford may not have always gotten the recognition he deserved, especially while in Detroit. But looking back at the greatest, most transformational talents at the quarterback spot, his name certainly belongs. Finally, to cap off the 2010s, is Matt Ryan, a highly accurate, sharp-minded MVP winner with the Atlanta Falcons, who led his team to the Super Bowl, where he and his team, well, let's just stop there. Needless to say, Ryan's timing on throws, pocket presence, and leadership were emblematic of quarterbacks in the decade prior, and without question, deserves mention. And here we are, the 2020s. Who are the all-time great quarterbacks of this era? Closing in on the halfway point of the decade, one has remained supreme, but others are starting to leave their mark as well. Burrow, Allen, Jackson. All are unique, and all are remarkable. Burrow of the Bengals has modeled his game off of Brees with his accuracy, Elway with his ability to improvise, and Montana with his ability to perform in the clutch. Yet he has a lot more to prove to live up to that comparison. Jackson, of course, is the modern-day Mike Vick with his ability to scramble, but his downfield throwing ability, improvisation, and overall accuracy, at least looking at the numbers, may very well be better. Josh Allen is, well, Josh Allen. Have we ever really seen anything like him? He has the size and downfield running of Cam Newton, arm talent similar to Stafford and Favre, and improvisation skills similar to Rodgers. He can really do it all, and is a generational talent. While he will always be remembered for his amazing ability, there's still so much more to accomplish if he wants to be remembered as an all-time great. Lastly, and fittingly, we have Patrick Mahomes. The talent and improvisation skills of Rodgers, the leadership and clutch of Brady and Montana. Mahomes may truly have it all, and has accomplished so much in his young career. Well, young by all-time great quarterback standards. With already 3 Super Bowls and 2 league MVPs, Mahomes' accomplishments are Hall of Fame worthy. But with his abilities, and the pace he's currently on, the sky is truly the limit. The Super Bowl era of the NFL has seen an astronomical number of great quarterbacks, with so many unique play styles, and over time, the position continues to evolve at a rapid rate. From the early field general days of Starr, to the ingenuity of Mahomes and Allen, and everything in between, the way the position is played is ever-changing. And at this point in time, the demands of quarterbacks are higher than ever, with a great emphasis now placed on a signal caller's ability to ad-lib within the pocket and make game-changing plays out of structure. As the years go on, many more great quarterbacks will grace the league, but the names mentioned here, and many others, will be remembered for their contributions to the position and the mark they've left on football. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, if you enjoy football stories like these, click the link in the description to subscribe to our weekly newsletter, where we'll be sharing more football stories and discuss weekly football news in both college and the NFL.